you, when we met you, you gave us a one sheet of paper, and basically you've became this sort of unofficial historian, maybe official, I don't know, but unofficial historian of this building. And so we'll talk about, the different components of the building, but today we're going to talk about a specific part of the building, which you walk up a windy staircase to see it. And so can you introduce what we're going to be talking about?
Well, at the top of the staircase in the lobby is a 1834 Zuber woodblock print mural called Scenes of North America. I did not know this when I first saw the mural. I immediately saw it was a beautiful work of art. I noticed it was a print, not a painting, but I didn't know the actual technique that had been used. I assumed that it was printed in 1927. I assume my original assumption about it was that Cheesewright himself had designed a work of art for his building. It's a diorama that it's obviously a storytelling mural, and I assume that he had, as a European, designed his vision of America because it's obviously visionary. It includes the Boston Tea Party, it has the Indians, it has West Point, it has Niagara Falls. So I just imagine this European man commissioning a mural, working with an artist of the history of America. Well, I was close, but not exactly accurate. I later found out the mural was printed in 1834. It was made in Alsace, France, by a company named Zuber, who were experts in woodblock printing.
Can you describe a little bit of that process, the woodblock?
Oh my God, well this mural I found at ours used over 1,500 blocks of wood. Woodblock printing is not at all an easy method. You have to carve each color part of the image you want to print. So say you're printing a woman in a dress. You need a block for the pink, you need a block for the highlights, you need a block for her face, you need a block for her eyes, you need a block for her hairs, you need a block for her hands. Every single little part of that woman is a different woodblock. And you have to line them up precisely to go on with the next color. So it's not easy. It's not easy. You see, the Japanese are master woodblock printers. You see woodblock printing, but you don't see woodblock printing at that level that Zuber reached with the foliage and the illustrative capacities. They definitely were masters of that medium.
Amazing. And then somehow this masterful, extremely detailed wallpaper, essentially.
They call it wallpaper. Yes, I just hate to use that word, and
because it like dumbs it down a little bit.
Well, Zuber used that word, Cheesewright used that word, but it's so much more than wallpaper. It's a mural. It's a beautiful, beautiful American history mural.
So can you maybe describe some of the scenes that are on this mural?
Well, as you go around the mural, it starts on the left. You have a whole scene about the Boston Tea Party, and it's a group of men talking. They're on a dock because behind them there's workers loading up ships. There's tall ships in the waters right behind them. And it's so interesting because it's talking about how much of our country was about talking, about conversation, about people getting together, sharing ideas, going over maybe propaganda they've been told, and kind of re-examining it and saying, look, are the English really, are being our benefactors here? Couldn't we do a little better on our own? It was so much about that, the conversation, the local watering hole, the dock in this case. And it beautifully depicts that, absolutely beautifully depicts. There's people listening, there's people talking, there's people thinking. It's just all about that. And right behind them is the docks. And in the far distance, there's a little image of the White House in 1834. There wasn't a photograph of the White House until the 1850s. So again,
Amazing.
There it is, the White House as it looked in 1834.
Who was in the White House in 1834?
Gosh,
Do you remember? I know
don't
me either.
know. My history of presidents is not strong enough.
We'll figure it out.
You follow it, so it's so as you go from the left. Well, first of all, on the very left is a beautiful woods with a path, because so much about American history is the nature. I mean, the Pilgrims came, they're like, oh my God, it just, nature was everywhere. The country's so rich in nature. So you have the woods, the path, then you have the Boston Tea Party, you have the harbor, there's the White House, and it keeps moving on the harbor to the little villages lining the water all the way around. And then that's the whole left side panel, which is absolutely stunningly beautiful, is ships, the harbor, the little village in the distance, and in the foreground, people either working on the docks or talking. In the very foreground is the conversation people are having, the whole image depicting the beauty of conversation, idea sharing.
Right, and do you think that that's sort of how, sort of the birth of America was, like, how, right through these.
Definitely.
There was a specific portion of the mural that you had pointed out to me with a group of African Americans and some, like, a white man on a horseback. Can you talk a little bit about that?
All throughout the mural, there are African Americans in period dress. There's a group of them in the Indian panel. There's a specific portion that you're talking about, and again in the West Point panel. This was so visionary. There was still slavery up to 1850, so this was imagining African Americans as equal to whites. I mean, you have to just put yourself in the mindset of how incredibly progressive that was, because at the time they weren't even thinking of ending slavery in America. The French might have been thinking, oh, they need to, I mean, I'm sure there was abolitionists going, but this was big. It was big to include that in the mural. But there's one panel right in the center of the mural. It's the first thing you see as you head up the staircase. There's a group of 3 African Americans in the period dress, just like having a conversation themselves. And they're not in rags, they're in, the clothes that everyone else is wearing, which are, the kind of upscale fashion. Well, right next to them is a man on a horse. And that man is sneering down at them. He's got his nose in the air. He's looking at them. You can just see, if there was a conversation bubble, it'd be like saying, who the hell do you think you are? You can just hear that coming from this snob on the horse. They are ignoring him. They are talking. And then in the background, there's a woman looking around like, oh, are those really African? Or, who knows what word they'd be using.
Right.
You don't want to think about it. But they're just shining them on and talking. That is such an important panel. That could not be more important. In a nutshell, it has our whole terrible history of slavery, the terrible, the struggles we've had with getting multiculturalism in place, with accepting people with different colors of skin. But it's right there. It's saying, this is America. It's in the center. This is what you're going to have, America. It's visionary. This is what's coming. You better get used to it. And we're still today struggling with that issue. And the next place I want to mention where there's African Americans right in the foreground is a man and a woman. There's a West Point panel with, of course, because if you're talking about a country and a history, you've got to represent the military. Well, in the background, there's the little the troops in the distance having some kind of maneuvers going on, and in the foreground are people watching them. Well, one of the groups is having a conversation. Right in the center is an African American couple, a man and a woman. The man's in a beautiful tall hat, and the woman's next to him, and there's people, white people, listening to them like, oh, they have something to say, they're interesting. Again, you have the other white men on horses, but they're kind of having their own conversation. But the ones that people are listening to is actually the African Americans. Well, you want to talk about visionary. I mean, this mural is in the White House. It's the same print as is in the White House, as Jackie Kennedy put it in 61. The Obamas for sure recognized the importance of that. They many times had their picture taken right in front of that mural. So I'm sure they would go in there and say, there we are. And I mean, it's visionary. It's visionary. I mean, how could they possibly, they couldn't have known, but they were guessing back in 1834 that Black people were going to have some importance in America, which is so beautiful.
And who designed this mural? Like, who crafted it?
I have the name of the man who actually did the drawings to make it up, which I'd have to look up. I don't know on the tip of my tongue, but It was an artist who is mainly accredited with, creating the mural. He must have been an employee of Zuber, and I assumed they would have the process where he would do drawings, probably very intricate drawings, and then his craftsmen would take those drawings and create woodblock prints from them, because that's how the illustrative and indeed the whole printing press worked in Europe for centuries. Is there would be someone do the drawing, and then the craftspeople would make the carvings. Woodblock printing, by the way, was a very important method, in pre-press, just in printing history, to create artworks that could be done more than once. Yes. That's the whole idea, is you can make multiples. So it's not just a painting in a museum. It becomes more egalitarian because it actually becomes multiples that can get out there and communicate what they do to many people.
Do you know, so it was done in 1834, and Zuber ultimately came up with the concept as a company.
They did. I keep saying, and I've said this, and I'm not 100% sure that it's something like the Statue of Liberty, because it's obviously France, who were allies of ours, saying, this is our gift to you, America. We believe in you. We believe in what you're doing. We support you. We support, the English were their bitter enemies. We support you in your struggles against the English. We are your friends. It's all tied up in that.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, do you have any idea what the original is? Like, where did the 1834 one
I don't know what... someone did call the legal aid who helped me save the mural from the restorers the landlord had hired, which almost ruined the whole thing.
You could talk about that next. Yeah. Actually, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
But tell me if you know.
He called Zuber at one point, and they said it had been printed several times, but they themselves had lost records because the factory was bombed in World War II. And they lost half the blocks. So it could never be printed again. The reason Cheesewright was able to print it with the original blocks is in 1927 they still existed. But they're gone now, sadly, because of the war, which, history is just so interesting and ruthless sometimes.
Yeah, kind of like what was going on in Syria and Iraq and all of that, destroying all. I mean, I'm sure we're going to feel the repercussions of that for many years to come. God knows what the hell was lost there. Jesus. Talk about ancient history. But I really do want to hear, and I want you to talk about the restoration. Tell me why it needed to be restored, and then what happened.
Well, the mural always did at the top have some water damage. There was some peeling, but the thing was, it wasn't that bad. Like, considering how old it was, it actually was in pretty good shape. The color is just maintained beautifully, but there was some peeling at the top, some water damage, a few nicks. So the landlord saw it, and one of the tenants offered, I know someone who can restore it for $3,000. First of all, that's way too low for a mural of that size and on paper, not. But anyway, the landlord was like, great, free restoration. So they let this hack come in, and he immediately starts painting over the trees. And I was like, yelling at him. I said, you can't do that. He goes, I'm going to repaint it. I said, first of all, it's not a painting, it's a woodblock print. You can't, paint it with a brush.
The artist didn't know that it was a woodblock print to begin with?
No, this so-called restorer, it was going to repaint it. You can't repaint a woodblock, a print. And yeah, it was bad. It was bad. So I went to the landlord and I said, you got to get this guy off the mural. He's destroying it. And they're like, they refused. They said, oh, well, it's been paid for, and we need it restored. And they refused to help me. So I started calling around. I called the Getty. They have a whole wing, a whole building called the Restoration Wing. They refused to get involved.
Huh.
So then I called the Huntington, where I had a personal friend in the library section, and I said, look guys, you got to come over here and see this mural, and I need your help to get this guy off the mural. They refused. How
did they respond to you?
You know what they did? They go, oh, well, here's a number of some paper of wallpaper restorers. They refused to come themselves. I said, I don't need the other restorers. I need you to come see it. They refused. To get in their car. The drive is literally a 15-minute drive or 10-minute drive. They refused to come, or they just wouldn't come. And so I followed the number of the wallpaper restorers. They go, oh, sounds interesting, but they were out of state. They didn't want to come. They couldn't take their time to send someone over. So
nobody's seeing sort of the historical significance of this extremely ancient woodblock mural.
It couldn't be more important work of American history, but they wouldn't come. And I sent pictures. It wasn't that I didn't let them know what they were missing, and they didn't get it. People, if they're not told, they hadn't seen like an article in the Smithsonian that talked about it. People they need to be coached.
They need to be told this is
they
important.
need to be told it's important. And if it's just someone on the phone, tell them it's important, they don't believe you.
Sure.
And you're like...
And that's partly the reason why we're recording this and putting this out there, because it's sort of a way to be like, hey, newsflash people, this is really important. And
as the guy, so the guy keeps going, right? And I'm walking past him every day, just like gritting my teeth. So I called them again, and I was starting to sounding a little desperate. I was like, look, you have to get over here. And then they get mad. Oh, she's like bossing us around. She's crazy because she's upset.
A favorite one for women.
and again, absolute refusal. So then I got in touch with Pasadena Heritage. Again, I got, oh, well, I'm not the one in charge, so let me send it to them, and then that person gets back to you, and I got the runaround from them. And then I reached out personally to Claire Bogart, who was the wife of Mayor Bogart, who was a fantastic Pasadena mayor, had been there for many terms.
Finally, in which decades? In the 80s or 70s?
Yeah, he was there for a long time. I think he had 3 terms, so it was not that long ago that he ended his term. One of the best mayors the city has ever had, and Claire has been known for her work in Pasadena Heritage. So finally she did come over. She
Congratulations,
came over,
you got somebody
and saw it. And eventually I even got her to meet with the landlord. And but meanwhile, thank goodness, the terrible it took so long that restoration was going on. So I posted on Facebook. There was a Facebook group about Pasadena, and I said, I need help. This mural is getting destroyed. I need someone to help me. Thank God for Dylan Littlefield. He read that. He also had a passion for Pasadena history, and he was a legal aid. He immediately came over, and he filed some kind of paperwork that got the guy off.
With what agency?
I don't know what he did, but he threatened the landlords enough that they got scared enough that they pulled him off.
Wow.
And that's the only way that it stopped. But by the time it stopped, there was at least $10,000 of damage done to it.
Yeah, and what does it look like right now?
It looks terrible. The whole beautiful panel we just talked about of the Boston T-Bar in the harbor, the whole sky is white, I don't know, latex or something. He said he was going to make the sky blue. Well, what I found out is the same mural, the Scenes of North America, the one in the White House has brighter color and the sky is blue. Cheesewright had chosen the color for our mural, intentionally making the sky gold.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
It was supposed to be gold. He and his, which I recently learned, he and his wallpaper artist had sat down and chosen the colors they wanted for their printing of that mural. Cheesewright was an expert in French art and French antiques. He wanted it more classical. And actually, I think by far, it's the most beautiful printing of the mural I've ever seen. And since then, I've done enough research. I've seen every printed version of the mural you can find online. Ours has the most beautiful color. It's
and so the colors, I really wanted to touch on that because I feel
they
like
are
that's
beautiful, and
really
they were
important.
chosen by artists with eyes who knew what they were doing. I think it's prettier than the one in the White House. Theirs is more, it's bright, but it's not as, the subtlety of our color, it just brings the whole richness of the mural out even more. But this idiot was there like trying to paint the sky blue, and yeah, but first he had to do white, then to put blue on the white. So thank goodness he's gone, but the damage he did is now inhibiting the mural. Obviously needs some kind of care and restoration, but he just added $10,000 to the tab of what it's going to cost.
Oh my God. And so that leads me to, there's really two questions that I have. It's like, why should anybody care, in your opinion, about this mural?
Well, you just wouldn't even have to ask that question if we were in New York, because they just have such a better understanding of, wow, it's American history, it's important American, history representing the history of our country. Something telling, a diorama like that is super important for our culture. We're going to protect it. But out here in the West, man, people just aren't as aware. And they're not getting, and in the Getty, they probably think, well, if we could have it and put it in our galleries, but no, it's on location. They would have to, maybe make it a site to visit, which they totally could. I mean, no museum in the world has more money than the Getty. The Getty has a whole building staffed for restoration. They should be the ones. They have the money to do it instantly, but I don't know if that's going to happen. It's going to have to happen in probably another way, but it's, it should have school groups visiting it. The people I give the tours on it, they get so happy, they get the biggest smile on their face. It means something to them. It, when they feel it in their bones, their history, and there it is in an artwork, the inclusivity of it. I mean, they just immediately get it. Mm-hmm. They immediately get it, that this is important and beautiful, and it makes their day to see it, And I guess that's the thing about great art. It just kind of improves everything.
Yes. And that kind of leads me to my final question is, people that are listening, what can they do? How can they help, if at all?
Well, I would if they're local, I would recommend coming for a tour of the artwork. And I'm just not enough of a fundraiser to know, but there has to be some kind of patron who would take on getting the money together for the restoration. Pasadena Heritage, I think they don't have the time at the moment. They have a slight problem of just they don't have enough new members with that new energy, but it needs someone to patron it and take over as the fundraiser for the restoration protection of the mural. It's been exposed to the sun and the wind and the elements. There's an elevator in the building, but it's a hand-operated elevator. So there's 30 tenants and 30 apartments. When people move in, I see them carrying their furniture up that staircase. And every time I'm like, watch out for the mural, watch out for the mural. Someone could bang a couch into it.
Rip a piece of it.
I mean, it's very precarious for something that important, the situation as it is.
Well, hopefully,
when the military was there, it wasn't as many people in the building, and they weren't like taking furniture up and down, or they used the elevator. So it's it needs care and protection.
We don't want to talk about that. But we could tease. So we've teased for the next another episode right on. But I do want to say that having seen it in person, it is magnificent, and it's so sad to see that like white acrylic whatever on the destroying it right now. It looks terrible, and I wonder maybe if people would if they listen to this and they nag Zuber or something, like just call the Los Angeles office and just be like, what, you guys have neglected your own masterpiece.
Well, Zuber they were, Dylan did call him in France They posted one picture on their Instagram of the mural because they didn't even know, they lost the records that it was even there.
Sure.
You know, I guess they were out of business for a while, but they're back in business, pretty full swing, and they're just not interested. It's a tricky restoration to find. I think Dylan found this out because it's on paper, and even Pasadena Heritage, it was a little, they didn't quite know what to do because they had just restored a canvas mural, but a mural on paper is that much more fragile. It's a woodblock print. It's that much harder to restore. It's going to need some specialist flown in from who knows where, maybe France, to take on, just to have the technique to restore it, and that's going to cost, you know, but it needs doing. Fortunately, even despite the tragedy, that you can still see, he didn't go over the figures. All of the pictorial parts are still intact.
It's mostly just the sky at this point,
it's
and
just
around
the
some
sky,
trees.
thank goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally was so mad at the guy. I almost pulled him off the ladder myself. I was so mad. He did not like me, and I was just giving him the evil eye every time I saw him. And I, many times just told him, get off that mural, do not do that. And he's like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
But it was all I could do because I couldn't get any backup.
Until
I found Dylan to come legally convince the landlord that it had to be done.
To pull him out.
And then,
do you know if they got their money back, or did it just kind of wash out?
I don't know. I don't know. But, at least all the pictorial parts are still there. Yeah. You can still appreciate it, and people still do, every time they see it. And it's still a beautiful, magnificent work of art that it just needs more people to see it because it's that great. It's that important. I mean, I always see it as visionary. I see there's a very interesting panel with the Indians, and they're kind of there's a group of kind of,
I would
dressed,
say like indigenous people.
Yes, indigenous people. There's like a group of people they're kind of performing for, but then in a way they're not performing for them. It's
intricate. There's a lot of society, like interpersonal.
I see that mural as telling the history of our country and
a little bit of the
pointing
future.
our country in a good way.
Yeah.
I see that whole area, that whole alcove at the top of the stairway is just a very important place to stand and just kind of summon up the energy of America. I mean, now we're just in this ridiculous time with this, president, and it's needed more than ever for us to coalesce, what America is and can be and should be. And
yeah, I can imagine.
And the mural is all involved in that. The nature, the different races, the beauty of it. Even everything is there. Everything is in that mural, so it's super important.
Yes.
It really could not be more important, and I think the Obamas definitely recognized that. They made that whole, and Jackie recognized that when she did her White House renovation, which is so legendary, considered the best one ever. Every time she had the cameras, the diplomat's reception room, she always got filmed in front of the mural. So she recognized the importance of it.
And its beauty.
And the Obamas recognized the importance, and it's important. Yeah. And here it is in Pasadena, and let's get some attention.
Yes.
Let's get some.
And that's really it. Like for me, I don't really have any other points to bring up about it. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or we can wrap it up and sort of direct people toward ways of helping?
Not for now, I guess. Just if you look at the pictures, and if you're able to, if you're local, come, make an appointment to come see it.
Excellent. All right. Until next time.